I was halfway through buttoning my cream silk blouse when my phone started buzzing across the marble counter, vibrating just enough to rattle the gold bracelet I'd taken off the night before. Morning light poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my downtown apartment, glinting off the skyline like it was trying too hard to impress me. I took a slow breath, the kind you take before a long day of decisions, and reached for my phone. It was a message from my mother. "He's at the airport. You promised you'd handle his ticket. They said it was canceled." Canceled. The word curled in my stomach with a dark, bitter irony I didn't bother swallowing. For a moment, I just stood there, thumb hovering over the screen, listening to the faint hum of traffic below, feeling the cool silk against my skin. I'd spent years perfecting this version of myself, the composed woman with the polished nails, the tidy apartment, the career that finally felt like mine. And yet all it took was one text to drag up memories I'd buried under layers of self-respect and distance. Of course he was at the airport. Of course he thought everything would magically work out for him. My brother always did. Just like he assumed I'd never find out what he did to me. The lie he told, the call he made, the mistake that cost me the flight that should have changed everything. I sighed, picked up my coffee, and stared at the message again. He sabotaged my flight once. Today, he was learning what it felt like when I didn't save his. I was 22 the morning everything fell apart, young enough to still believe family meant safety, old enough to feel the sting when that fantasy shattered. I remember gripping the handle of my carry-on so tightly my knuckles turned white, standing in our cramped living room in Ohio while my brother, Ethan, leaned against the doorway with that careless smirk he always wore when he thought he was winning. "You're seriously leaving?" he scoffed. "For what?" "Some internship you're probably not even qualified for." My throat tightened. "It's not just an internship, Ethan. It's a full program in LA. They picked me. I worked for this." He shrugged, tossing an apple from one hand to the other like my future was a casual, boring topic. "Yeah, well, Mom and Dad think you're rushing things. And honestly, I agree." That was the first sting, the kind that makes your eyes water even when you refuse to blink. I swallowed. "My flight's at 9. I'm going." I turned away before he could argue, grabbing my passport and the tiny silver compass Grandma Lily had given me the week before. "For direction when the world tries to pull you off your path," she'd whispered as she pressed it into my palm. It was small, cool, and comforting, the one reminder that someone believed in me. I didn't know then how desperately I would cling to that belief. The airport was crowded, humid, chaotic. I checked in early, nerves buzzing under my skin like static. But when I reached the gate, the attendant glanced at my ticket, frowned, and typed something into her screen. "I'm sorry," she said gently. "This flight was canceled hours ago. You should have received a call." A call. The world blurred for a moment. My phone had been dead that morning. Ethan had offered, no, insisted, on charging it for me. "You don't want to get stuck without it," he'd said with fake brotherly concern. I walked out of the terminal trembling, fury mixing with heartbreak. When I confronted him, he didn't even pretend. "I was protecting you," he said, voice defensive. "You're not ready for big cities and big dreams. Someone had to stop you from ruining your life." The lump in my throat was so sharp I couldn't speak. He wasn't protecting me, he was making sure I stayed small, stuck, predictable. That night, I sat alone on Grandma Lily's porch, the compass cool in my hand, the horizon stretching endlessly in front of me. And for the first time in my life, I realized no one was coming to save me. So I would save myself. And I would go, with or without their blessing. Leaving home didn't feel dramatic or cinematic. It felt quiet, a single backpack, a bus ticket bought with tips from late-night diners, and the steady weight of Grandma Lily's compass in my pocket. I didn't have much, but I had resolve. And sometimes that's heavier than any suitcase. LA hit me like a heat wave and a dare all at once. I found a tiny studio apartment that was basically a shoebox with a door, but the landlord didn't ask for much besides punctual rent and proof I didn't have a pet boa constrictor. Fair enough. My first job wasn't glamorous. I answered phones at a marketing firm, the headset always too big for my head, the office smelling faintly of burnt coffee and old carpet. But every time I walked past the creative department, their mood boards, their pitch rehearsals, their late-night brainstorming, something inside me lit up. One night, after a particularly rough day of clients yelling and my supervisor double-booking calls, I stayed late to cry in the break room. That's when she found me, Victoria Hale, the woman who would eventually change my life. She was everything I wasn't. Poised, brilliant, effortlessly confident. Her heels alone cost more than my rent. "You're new," she said gently, handing me a tissue. "But you've got something in your eyes. Ambition. Don't waste it answering phones forever." I remember laughing through tears. What else would I do? She tilted her head. "Learn. Shadow me. Sit in creatives meetings. Ask questions. The world doesn't hand women power, we take it." Her belief struck deeper than she realized. And she meant it. She began letting me observe brainstorming sessions, handing me spare notes, letting me listen in on calls. I learned everything: branding, storytelling, client psychology, negotiation. But the work was brutal. There were nights I fell asleep on my desk, forehead pressed against half-finished drafts. Mornings when I'd stare at my reflection, brushing concealer under my exhausted eyes, wondering if I'd made a mistake. Days when comments about being too young, too emotional, or too quiet chipped away at me. Still, every time I faltered, I'd feel the compass in my pocket, a cool reminder that direction mattered more than speed. My first win came unexpectedly. A small eco-friendly startup couldn't afford the senior team, so Victoria nudged the file toward me. "Impress them," she whispered. "Or at least impress yourself." I worked on that pitch like my life depended on it, because in a way, it did. And when the startup signed a full-year contract, Victoria didn't just congratulate me. She promoted me. From there, momentum built slowly, but steadily. I developed campaigns that took off. My name began circulating in boardrooms. Clients asked for me by name. Money followed, careful, growing, quiet money I didn't brag about. And through it all, I stayed small on social media. My family saw nothing but vague updates, a picture of coffee here, a view of the beach there. Never the office. Never the clients. Never the reality. Because I knew them. If they thought I was thriving, they'd find a way to shrink me. If they thought I was struggling, they'd feel justified. So I let them think nothing at all. I built an empire in silence, brick by brick, night by night, waiting for the day they would finally see it. The day my family showed up in Los Angeles, unannounced and uninvited, I was reviewing quarterly reports in my office, the office they didn't know existed. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the skyline like a living painting, sunlight reflecting off the glass desk where my laptop hummed quietly. A minimalist abstract painting hung behind me, one I'd bought from a local artist during a charity event. The space was serene, intentional, mine. Then my assistant knocked. "Miss Carter," she said softly, "your family is here. They insisted it's urgent." My heart stuttered, not in fear, but in something colder, sharper. "Send them in." First came my mother, her eyes darting everywhere. The velvet chairs, the marble floor, the curated shelves. Then my father, stiff as ever, like he was bracing for judgment. And finally Ethan, hands in his pockets, expression neutral, though I caught the flicker of surprise in his eyes. None of them spoke at first. They just stood there absorbing the room, the energy, the version of me they'd never imagined. My mother broke the silence. "Ava, what is this place?" I leaned back in my leather chair, letting them take in the view behind me. "My office." Ethan snorted softly. "Your office?" "Come on, Ava." "For who?" "For myself." I let the words settle like dust. "Carter Creative Consulting. I own it." My father's brow tightened. "But you were just an assistant a few years ago."
"Correct."
"And now I'm CEO." Stunned didn't begin to cover their expressions. My mother sank into a chair, staring at me like she was seeing me for the first time. My father opened his mouth, then closed it, speechless. Ethan looked like someone had punched the air out of him. I didn't rush to ease their shock. For years, I'd swallowed my disappointment, my hurt, my heartbreak. Today, they could taste some of it. "Why didn't you tell us?" my mother whispered. "Because you didn't believe in me," I said simply. "Because every time I reached for something bigger, you told me I was unrealistic, dramatic, foolish. Because when I needed support, I got sabotage." My eyes flicked to Ethan. He looked away. My father cleared his throat. "This is impressive, Ava. Truly. But we're here because your brother needs help." Ah. There it was. The real reason. The real urgency. I folded my hands. "Help with what?" "His flight," my mother said quickly. "The one you canceled?" I smiled, not sweetly. "Yes. I canceled it." Ethan stepped forward, bristling. "You're being petty. Mom said you'd grown up. That you'd be reasonable." Reasonable. That word used to break me. Today it rolled right off my skin. "Ethan," I said calmly, "when I was 22, you canceled my flight. You told me I wasn't ready. You told me dreams were dangerous. You lied to stop me." He flushed. "I was trying to help you." "No," I corrected. "You were trying to control me." Silence filled the room. Thick, heavy, overdue. I stood, the soft click of my heels echoing across the polished floor. In this office, I don't shrink. I don't apologize for wanting more. And I don't tolerate manipulation. My mother wiped her eyes. "Ava, sweetheart, we didn't know you'd become successful." I finished for her. Independent? Worth listening to. Their guilt filled the space like smoke, lingering in every corner. I let them sit in it. Then I took a breath and delivered the blow they weren't ready for. "Ethan's trip is canceled," I said, voice even, precise. "But that isn't the punishment." Ethan's head snapped up. "Then what is?" "You're about to learn," I said, "what accountability feels like." And for the first time in my life, all three of them realized the balance of power had shifted, permanently. Ethan's jaw tightened, that familiar flare of indignation rising in his eyes. He wasn't used to standing on unstable ground. He preferred when everyone else stumbled, so he could feel steady. But this time, he had nowhere to lean, no one to hide behind. I walked around the desk and stood in front of them, close enough to feel their unease. "You didn't come here for honesty," I said calmly. "You came for convenience. For a solution. For me to fix something again." My father shifted uncomfortably. "Ava, let's not make this dramatic." I almost laughed. Dramatic. The word they always used when I dared to have feelings. "This isn't drama," I said softly. "This is reality. And now we're going to discuss terms." My mother blinked. "Terms?" "Yes." I looked directly at Ethan first, the root of it all. "Your flight wasn't canceled out of spite. It was canceled because you've never been held accountable for anything in your life. You sabotage, you manipulate, you twist things to suit you. You did it to me, and I'm willing to bet you've done it to others too." He opened his mouth to argue, but I raised my hand. "No interruptions." His jaw snapped shut. "You want help with your trip?" I continued. "Fine. But I'm not funding anyone who refuses to grow up. If I'm going to invest in you, then you're going to invest in yourself. Starting now, you're getting therapy. Real therapy. Once a week. And you're getting a job you qualify for, not one you can brag about. No more handouts." Ethan's eyes widened. "You can't dictate my life." "I'm not dictating," I corrected. "I'm offering a choice. Grow or don't. But my support ends here unless you change." He fell silent, chest rising and falling with quiet fury, but beneath it, I saw something new. Uncertainty. Maybe even fear. Growth always looks like fear when it's unfamiliar. I turned to my father next. "You taught me strength," I said. "But you also taught me silence, how to swallow my needs so yours felt bigger. You don't get to belittle me in one breath and need me in the next. If you want to be part of my life, you're going to treat me like an equal. No more dismissing my accomplishments. No more telling me I'm too much. Respect goes both ways." His face tightened, pride warring with something softer. "I can try." "Good," I said. "Trying is a start. Then I faced my mother, whose eyes were already glossy with tears. "You always wanted peace," I said gently. "But you created it by asking me to shrink, to stay quiet, to keep the family calm while I drowned underneath your expectations. If you want a relationship with me now, I need your honesty, not your smoothing over. If Ethan hurts someone, say it. If Dad is unfair, say it. Stop asking me to carry the emotional weight of this family alone." She let out a breath, trembling. "I didn't realize how much I put on you." "I know," I whispered. "But now you do." The room was still, fragile, shifting. I straightened. "These are my conditions. Not punishments. Opportunities. For all of us. You asked for my help. This is what it looks like." None of them argued. Not because they agreed, not yet, but because for the first time they understood. I wasn't the girl whose flight they canceled. I was the woman who charted her own course, and theirs, if they wanted to walk beside me. All on my terms. They didn't change overnight, no one ever does, but something in them shifted that afternoon. I saw it first in Ethan. The anger he usually hid behind sarcasm didn't vanish, but it softened. For once, he didn't storm out or slam a door. He sat there, absorbing every word as if the ground beneath him had tilted, and he was trying to find new footing. A week later, he sent me a photo, a blurry shot of a small local counseling office. No caption, no explanation. Just proof that maybe, for the first time, he was choosing growth over ego. My father took longer. He called me one evening, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard. He didn't lecture, didn't question, didn't correct my decisions. He simply said, "Tell me about your company. I want to understand what you built." It wasn't an apology, but it was a beginning. My mother was the easiest and the hardest. She visited me a month later, not to mediate a crisis or to convince me to be nice, but simply to spend time with her daughter. We drank iced tea on my balcony overlooking the city, the warm breeze tugging at the edge of her scarf. "I wish I'd been stronger for you," she said softly. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out the tiny silver compass, the one constant through every version of myself. I placed it in her palm. "Grandma gave me this when I needed direction," I said. "Now I'm giving it back. Not because I'm lost, but because I'm not." Her eyes filled instantly, tears sliding down with no attempt to hide them. She held the compass like it was made of something sacred. Maybe it was. As for me, life didn't return to the way it was before, it evolved. My office felt different now. Not because the furniture changed, but because the shadows of old wounds no longer lived in its corners. I worked with more clarity, more confidence, more peace. One afternoon, while reviewing a new campaign, I caught my reflection in the window, the woman I'd become. Independent. Self-made. Unapologetically myself. I realized then that every setback, every dismissal, every canceled flight had led me here. Not despite the pain, but through it. When my family finally learned to meet me where I stood, not above me, not below me, I felt something loosen in my chest. Not forgiveness, exactly. Not yet. But possibility. A new direction. A new beginning. And as I watched the city glow beneath me, I whispered the final truth I'd earned the right to claim. No one controls my journey anymore, not even the people who tried to stop it. Top of form. Bottom of form.